Welcome to Sports Betting Podcast from pregame.com for the week of December 9th, 2009. I'm your host, RJ Bell. I'm joined by Marco D'Angelo, 30 years in the business, Vegas runner, genuine professional bettor here in Las Vegas. This is segment 1 of 6, big game preview, Army-Navy, the classic. Okay, Vegas runner, tell us about the line in this game.
All right, this one opened up Navy minus 14 with a total of 41. It's being played in Philadelphia, like always, the neutral field. And as of this morning, Navy's still 14, and the total's still 41. A bit surprising to me. I thought the wise guys would try to beat the public to lay in the favor, especially since it's on that 14, and take Navy. But by them not touching it tells me they may like the dog here.
And that's, I think, the classic approach with trying to interpret wise guy moves is if there is no movement, it means they don't like the favor, but they may like the dog, but they want to wait.
Yeah.
Because unless, think about it, we know that the move's typically towards the favor with the public later
Sure,
in the week.
especially in this game, too.
So
I
they're
think it's going to be all public money.
Yeah. So if they like the favor, they usually bet early. If they like the dog, they'll bet early if they love the dog, right? But if not, they might as well wait and see if they can get the 14 and a half.
Exactly.
So they don't like the favor here, most likely.
Yeah, I don't think so, or they would have laid it already.
All right, so as a handicapper, Marco, what jumps out at you about this game?
Well, Navy has absolutely owned this series recently. They're 13-4 against the spread the last 17, and they have beat...
For Marco, 17 years is recently. I was thinking, 3 in a row. He's like, well, it's been a short 17 years recently.
You guys... They are going for their
Obama took office recently.
They are going for their 8th win in a row. Navy is against Army. One thing to notice: this game is a week later than it normally is. They pushed this game back. Normally, this is played the first Saturday in December. And last week we always have those championship games, but there was almost like a mini schedule last week. There was a lot of other games, and because they wanted to get this CBS for TV exposure, they pushed us back an extra week. What effect that'll have on these teams, that's to be said. But also in college football, this is finals week for most schools. That's why this week in college basketball you see so many small cards this week.
So fewer games. Okay. So that's always an interesting approach, is especially around, like you said, finals, is these are students. What are they doing? And that's something that comes up, what are they doing outside of sports? And is it something that's distracting them? So that's one thing. If you read the local papers and stuff, and you get this a lot during the Christmas tournaments and then during spring break in college basketball, is if the campus is empty, a home game isn't as meaningful. Now, you brought up an interesting point about this game being pushed back, Marco. Usually I only care about trends that I can really understand. I mean, the old left-handed quarterback east of the Mississippi in games that start at night. I don't care about that. But I want to hear about something that makes sense to me, like this in an underdog situation. How does this team do? Or as a big dog? And this stat jumped out at me. I didn't understand it, but I thought I'd throw it to you guys or out to the community out there. So if you're watching this and you have some feedback, go to pregameforums.com and let us know. We talk about, we continue the conversation right there that we have here on video and audio. Army is 4-19 ATS off a bye. Now, what does that tell us? It could be coaching to some degree. But does it tell us that maybe it's inherent, and this is what I don't know about Army, when they do have a week off, that, their other duties, their military duties become bigger?
Their other responsibilities, sure.
I mean, does anyone have any thought? I mean, that's a big number. 4-19 is a big number. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, especially since it's after a bye, because I was going to say, in general, Army just hasn't been a good team, so I would think they'd have a losing ATS record. But this is specifically off a bye, and that's the only thing that would make sense to me, that going to, West Point or the military academies aren't the same as going to other universities.
If anything, you would think with the extra time to prepare, being, a military school, and, the diligence that they have in preparation.
Which is another thing contrary with Army. They've lost 6 straight as a double-digit dog. And usually the old school,
They give you effort.
for me, the old school, for Marco, the recent handicapping,
Just the other
like
week.
in the '80s, is people. Every trend book used to say, go with the academies when they're a big dog because they're never going to give up.
Yeah, their pride.
This team's lost 6 in a row.
All of that said, and with, like you say, you like stats that are pertinent and everything. One thing to consider, and it's one of the points that I think is a big factor in this particular game, you realize that Army has a new coaching staff this year. And the coach, Coach Ellerson, was an assistant to Paul Johnson. Paul Johnson is the guy that created the system that's at Navy right now, that Navy runs. So that's a huge factor that maybe gives Army a little bit of an edge this year. That not only are they running the offense, they're practicing against that offense every day. So they're going to be more familiar with the Navy triple option than most people playing.
Does that make us like the under?
Well, these teams.
You can say no opinion.
I can say no opinion because one thing that when you're dealing with a game in the middle of December and we're recording on Wednesday, especially in Philadelphia, and we talked about this for the Thursday night game, you got to wait till game day on totals time of the year.
Well, if you want to go over. If you want to go under, play early and you're getting a free.
You're going to see it going down.
You're getting a free roll. It's either going to be the weather's fine and then the total doesn't go down, or it gets bad and you've just got a better number.
Right, but you alluded to it last week when we were talking about totals. With today's, sophisticated, looking out in advance, the bookmakers are doing that too. And if they're projecting bad weather, they'll set the number a little bit based on what the forecast.
Okay,
is
so
then
it's neutral. Then is if it's an 80% chance, and I agree with that. If there's an 80% chance it's going to be bad, 20% it's not. They're going to say, what's the adjustment if it's bad,
Right, yeah.
and then only adjusted 8/10 of that. And it's just like they do in the financial markets with a merger arbitrage or something. So I don't think weather is a huge factor here. Well, okay, I personally would lean towards the under. Whenever you have a defense that's familiar with an offense, especially a quirky offense like we talk about, that's a big advantage. Now, here's a general concept that applies to all situations where you have a coaching change, and I think that's a great point, Marco, is the coach that leaves the program has the advantage because he understands his old program better than the senior coach understands what he's doing at the new program, because he's going to tweak it. And we ran into that a little bit with Denver and New England this year. To me, Denver had the edge there. So this is a kind of a golden nugget takeaway. Whenever you have a coach that leaves a program and goes to a new place, the advantage is with the new coach at the new place because he understands the old program more than the coach understands his new program.
Makes sense.
All right, Mark or VR, we have 60 seconds. Give us a few more thoughts.
Okay, bottom line, I like Army in this game. I think this line, because
so leans
to Army for sure. I think the line's extremely inflated because it is the only game to bet college football that Saturday. So I think they inflated it knowing Navy's going to get the money. Marco just told us about the history.
It's going to be a public game.
Yeah, in the last 2 years, it's 72-3 combined final score. So Navy's completely dominated the series, and I think that's where the public money's going to go. So we got an inflated number here, and at 14, I think it'll go up. I like Army.
Play it early if you like.
Yeah.
Well, excuse me.
Play it late, closer to kickoff.
Yeah.
Closer to kickoff.
So you like the dog here, and you would say wait till kickoff and maybe get 14.5.
Absolutely, because as good as Navy is, third in the country in rushing yards, Army's 14th. So they're having success on the ground too. And this Army team's 5-6 this year, so they're not as bad, and they really want to get to 500.
We're going to have to wrap. 2 quick stats. Navy is 8-2 ATS in December, good late in the year. They're 7 of 8 winners as a favorite. So the trends go Navy, you like Army. Okay, next up is we're going to be doing going straight to the NFL, big game preview, Denver against the Colts. And remember, you can get all of our videos at pregame.tv, or if you want to download and listen, go to iTunes and search for pregame.com.